Hello, my name is Mahaleyah. Welcome to All This Bliss. Today I'm very excited. Today I have someone sitting next to me that's very dear to me, a longtime friend, also a member of the Hebrew Israelite community, Abshalom bin Shlomo. Welcome.
Peace and blessings. We're grateful and appreciative for the opportunity to spend these moments.
Okay. Well, we're not going to waste a minute because this is somebody that we have collaborated on the making of this video for a little while, and he is a gem in terms of a person that you'd want to interview because his life is I like to say that in our community there are many of the young people that have no idea of what giants walk amongst them, and Abshalom is truly one of those giants. They have no idea of the contribution that he made to the community and to the state of Israel. So we're going to get right into the meat of the subject. Abshalom is a renowned musician worldwide, and what I'd like to do now is I'd just like to go back, all the way back to the very beginning, and to Chicago. And you were a young boy. I heard this story from you several times. You were a young boy and you were coming home from school with one of your friends. And as you were passing by, you were first of all told to come straight home, which you didn't, because you heard a strange sound that was coming from a bar, right? And so you peeped in, and at that particular moment, it sort of was the beginning of a journey of a lifetime, would you say?
Quite an exceptional experience.
Okay. So why don't you tell us about it?
Well, before I begin, I'd like to take the opportunity to give all thanks, praise, gratitude, and appreciation to the Holy One of Israel and to all of the Ascended Masters, holy angels, and benevolently blessed spirit guides that are here with us and continue to bless us. So without any further ado and to-do, it was in Chicago, approximately 1960. Myself and my great comrade at that time, friend, and he's very well known in the world at this point as a tone scientist as well, Henry Threadgill is his name. We were coming home from school, Inglewood High School, and we were walking down 63rd coming back west, and we heard this particular strange sound, and we stopped. We said, "Man, what's happening?" And so he said, "Let's go ahead and check it out." You know, he said, "You know, parents told us to bring, quote unquote, bring your ass home from school, straight home from school, when you get out of school." So this sound had caught us. So we went in this dark club, and we looked. It was dark, and we saw some guys in there. And first thing that caught us, we looked at each other. It was this guy, this black man, in 1960 with an electric piano, which was exceptional. He had this electric piano. He had a light on his head.
A what?
A light.
Now, you never told me that part of the story before.
He had a light on his head. And so we saw these other two guys. One was a tall, dark-skinned guy, skinny, tenor saxophone player. And the other one, he had a bunch of flutes, and he had an alto horn, light-skinned guy, and a bass player. So we looked at each other like, I'm looking at you like, man, what are they doing? And so they were concentrated in what they were doing. And so we sat down. And before we knew it, we were immersed in this energy that they were projecting, this sound, this sound. And so it caught us. And so we don't know how long we were in there, but we know we had broke the rules of our parents. And so we jumped up. We said, I said, "Henry, man, we better get out and go home, man." He said, "Yeah." And so we jumped and we were getting ready to leave, and a little voice came out and said, "Don't go." We like, "Don't go, please stay."
Was it Michael Jackson?
Wasn't Michael Jackson. But it was a mesmerizing. it was a sound that came out and said, "Don't go, please stay." And so we were on our way to the door, so he got up, he stopped what he was doing, he came behind us, he said, "Don't go, please stay." And we turned around and said, "No, our parents told us we had to come straight home from school. And we don't know how long we had been in here, but we didn't violate our principles, our home principles."
Your curfew.
Wasn't a curfew like that. We were supposed to come home to do whatever we were supposed to do at home, go over to homework, whatever. So Henry lived in another area. I lived in another area in Chicago, in the Inglewood district at that time. We were from Inglewood. Hey, hey, hey. So the man said, "Well, first of all, I want to thank y'all for coming in and taking time to be with me and the band." So he's like, "Okay, thank you too, but we got to go." He said, "Well, no, let me introduce myself. My name is Sun Ra." We said, "Your name is Sun Ra." It's like, we know we got to go now.
Right.
We about 15, 16 and hearing somebody say their name is Sun Ra.
Right.
It was like, Henry, let's get out. I'm like, let's get out of here.
Right.
So he said, "No, my name is Sun Ra, and I'm from outer space.
Oh.
And I came to save black people." And so that was icing on the cake.
Wow.
He said, "We got to get out." We know it was intuitive between Henry and me. We know we got to go now.
Right.
A black man with a name like Sun Ra with some lights on his head, saying he from outer space. He came to save black people. It was overwhelming. So that was that encounter, and so we thanked him, and he thanked us, and we got out of there. I mean, it was a lot more to go with that, but anyway, so proceeding on.
Okay, Abshalom, what I want to know is Sun Ra was one of the greatest influences on you in your life. Would that be correct to say?
He was one of them. He was a great mentor. Yes, that's true.
Okay, and later on, or was he at that time one of the most controversial musicians that was out there, or was that to come later?
At that time, he was controversial in Chicago. He was influencing everybody. When Miles Davis would come to town, he would seek an audience with Sun Ra. When Coltrane would come to town, he would seek an audience with Sun Ra. And most of the major influential musicians that were known would come and seek Sun Ra to get consultation. Really? Based on his ideologies, his perceptions, and what he was playing. He played in Chicago. He was backing a lot of vocalists and doing a lot of different kinds of commercial things in order to survive. But he had put together many ensembles with a lot of very well-known instrumentalists.
I didn't know that. So he was really somewhat of an innovator. Very
innovator and a creator. He's saying the possible has been done. I came to do the impossible.
Oh wow, I like that very much. Okay, so were you a budding musician at that time, or did that come later?
Well, I was budding, a little seed, because my dad had invested in me at an early age in terms of he wanted me to be into music because my father loved music and he was into music. My father played guitar, studied, and he invested in me. We at the time when I was the only child, we couldn't afford a piano, but he put me in piano lessons and I didn't do well with them. And so he wanted me to play guitar. He said, "No, it cuts my fingers, the strings." So I didn't deal with that. And later I had a friend in Chicago, a neighbor, that went to Crane High School, and he got in the high school band and he started playing saxophone. I told my dad, I said, "That's what I want to do," because of the influence from my friend. He said, "Well, if you want to play saxophone, I'm going to get you a clarinet." He said, "That's the basis for the woodwind instrument." So my dad bought me a clarinet, and he invested in me. I was 11 years old at that time. he put me in the Sherwood Music School in Chicago,
Oh.
which was downtown, and I was my mentor, my teacher at that time was a very well-known jazz saxophonist by the name of Joe Daly in Chicago. And so I studied with Joe Daly for four and a half years clarinet. So that's how that went. Then I went later to the Chicago's Conservatory of Music, then to some other colleges and schools for music appreciation and all that kind of thing in Chicago and out of the state. So yeah, I mean it's a whole something. We take a lot of time in just even talking about all of that. So
right,
we got a lot to discuss.
Right. There's a whole lot, because from what I'm understanding now, a lot of the music, the curriculum for music, and which was once so much a strong part of the educational system in the inner city, has now been sort of taken out.
I'm hearing that primarily in Chicago. I'm in touch with family members, and I understand Rami Manuel, who is the mayor of Chicago from Israel, has cut back on a lot of programs in the black community for whatever reasons. Mm-hmm. And music education has been, for years from what I'm hearing, not even a point of interest in the black community school curriculum.
Well, we'll have to look further into that. Right now, we're going to go a little further down the road. And what was the next step that took you towards your professional career?
Well, I had another great friend. His name was Arlington Davis. Unfortunately, he just made transition. We went to Inglewood High School together. And after I had graduated from Inglewood High School, I wasn't doing nothing. I was working at a place called Spiegel's, a mail order house in Chicago.
Yeah. right. You remember that.
And I had moved out of my dad's house out of frustrations. I was 19 years old. I moved in on 63rd Street with my aunties, my grandfather's sisters. And I had bought a pint of wine one night after working, and in frustration I went up on 63rd Street to a place called Budland to
I've
dance.
heard of that. I'm not from Chicago, but I've heard of that place.
Not Birdland, Budland. It was a place in the basement where you could go and dance. Mm-hmm. And I went down there one night, drunk. And after I was leaving, I ran into my friend Butch Arlington Davis, and to kind of condense all of this, he had moved into this. He asked me, he said, "Man, what you doing?" He saw me. I said, "Man, I ain't doing nothing." He said, "You still playing?" I said, "No, but I got my horn, which was my clarinet." He said, "Well, I just moved into this apartment building." He said, "Man, I got some good reefer. Why don't you come on to the crib? I got some new Miles. Some Miles is hip, new stuff, and we can hang out for the night." Mm-hmm. So I went to Butch's. It was on 6109 Dorchester, which was a building known as the Avon Building, which became later very influential for artists and African students. Uh-huh. It was owned by a Jewish woman. Her name was Mrs. Walderman. It was a big 4-story building that had been cut up. It just had a room, outside bathroom, toilet facilities, and you could cook and sleep in there. So anyway, I get to Butch's crib, and so he bring out these hip Miles tunes. I'm like, "Man, this is hip." He said, "So what you gonna do, man? You gonna play? What you gonna do?" I said, "Man, I don't know what I'm gonna do." He said, "Why don't you move in over here?" I said, "Well, I'm living with my aunties." He said, "Where you working?" I said, "I'm working at Spiegel's." He said, "Man," he said, "you need to get back into the music." So that was the impetus. I ended up moving into the Avon Building in 1963. And there was a lot of influential people in there. I mean, the brother that also went to Inglewood High School, he was older. Octal Eba, his name at that time was Dewey Williams. Octal Eba. He was responsible for me becoming more conscious about Hebrewisms. Okay. And getting me in Sunrise Orchestra in 1968, which I later left Chicago in 68 to move to Philly. Although in 67, I moved to Philly and stayed with Sunrise from 68 until 70. I moved back to Chicago. I'm jumping because it's a lot. But prior to that, I stayed in the building, and then another major influence, he later became the first drummer for Earth, Wind and Fire. His name was Fifi Flard Williams.
Oh.
Fifi, brother Fifi, came and he turned me on, turned me out. He introduced me to the AACM.
AACM.
Association for the Advancement of Creative Musicians, which was established by Richard Mulhall Abrams, Jody Christian, Steve McCall, Ajiramu, Gerald Donovan, Jimmy Ellis. I might be leaving out some names because I'm going back, just pulling it off my head. Tremendous organization which is still in existence today. So I became a member of the AACM in 1965,
Okay.
which produced the art ensemble Roscoe Mitchell, Joe Jarman, Threadgill. I'm reaching now quickly. My good friend John Stubblefield, Lester Bowie, all of these people that I mentioned, Anthony Braxton, all of us were young cats in the AACM.
Wow.
Sherry Scott, Rita Warford, great vocalists, some dancers, a whole bunch of Charlie Clark, Christopher Getty. I'm trying to remember.
So all of these were your contemporaries?
Yeah, yeah.
My goodness.
Yeah. I mean, a bunch of other people that I ain't even mentioned. Trying to get all this in, but yeah, I was a part of the art ensemble, the AACM, not the art ensemble, but the AACM big band. Leonard Jones on bass. Jenkins, Leroy Jenkins on violin.
It's all coming back.
Yeah, it's coming a little bit.
Okay.
And I apologize for anybody that I'm leaving out, but I'm reaching.
Well, it's okay because
That's the AACM. Not to even mention getting into, after I left the AACM, I left the AACM, and all of this is part of a transitional change. I later joined the Afro Arts Theater, which was headed up by Phil Coran, and a tremendous group of brothers. Hipmo, Don Myrick, Louis Satterfield, Ram Lee.
oh my goodness.
They went on to become Earth, Wind and Fire.
These are powerhouses.
They went on to become what is known as members. They performed with Phil Collins. They were the horn section for Phil Collins, but they were the horn section also with Earth, Wind and Fire. I'm leaving out some names. Durf, looking, Dynamite Percussionist, Brekloff, Raheem. It was a whole bunch of us with Phil Coran at that time. Phil Coran was also one of my mentors and teachers in terms of African concepts.
Okay.
And at the time, the Afro Arts Theater in Chicago in 1967, he opened this theater and it was dealing with all natural foods, cultural clothing, black consciousness and all of that. So Phil Coran.
Well, what was the basic belief as far as the Afrocentric ideology? How was that infused into the music? So it
was culture, getting back to our roots. It wasn't a religiosity, there was no religion involved, just that Phil was dealing strongly with black culture. The AACM was dealing with doing creative improvisational music. And so we were just youngsters. It wasn't so much involved around the culture, but it was involved around a concept of doing creative improvisational music.
So it was almost like a melting pot of just culture and
yeah, it was.
New art forms.
Art forms, yeah. That was what the ACM was about, more so. I mean, we did improvisational music in terms of not playing chord changes, doing stuff which you felt and things that you were studying. And the brothers were studying heavy.
Wow.
Mulhall was the pioneer in terms of teaching. But he had also been influenced by Sun Ra, because Sun Ra was the guy. Sun Ra was the guy in Chicago. But Chicago, that particular place, is and was the spiritual center, because we got to remember that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad came out of there, Ben-Ami came out of there, Noble Drew Ali came out of there, a bunch of other spiritual people came out of Chicago. Chicago was the spiritual nucleus, which was established by the French African Jean Pont du Sable.
That's right. And DuSable, didn't they have a marching band that was famous?
It was a school named after him, the DuSable School, the DuSable Museum, later by Margaret Burroughs, which is headed now by Carol Adams, our good friend. But I'm saying Illinois, Chicago was established by a black man.
Yes, that's true. I've heard
and
that.
so all of this, Chicago was and is a spiritual center. Even though the decadence that's taking place there now, that's a whole nother something.
Right.
But Chicago and all of that which came out of there, so many giant, Nat King Cole came out of Chicago, Gene Ammons, Johnny Griffin, John Gilmore. That was who was, when I went to see Sunrise that time as a youngster, it was John Gilmore, Marshall Allen, Ronnie Boykins on bass, and Sun Ra. Von Freeman. A lot of people don't even know about all these giants. Clifford Jordan, Charles Davis, so many dynamic sisters. Abby Lincoln is from Chicago. I'm missing some sisters. Y'all, please forgive me. I can see it now. Oscar Brown Jr., his daughter Maggie Brown. I've had the occasion and opportunity to do some things with her when I was in Chicago. So many dynamic people still in Chicago now. So I'm indebted. I owe them.
Musical pioneers.
I owe them.
Okay. So, so he definitely was a major influence along with the others that you mentioned, and helping to shape and inform your idea of what music was all about. When you came into the community, how did that coalesce? How did that jive, come together?
It really didn't. I had stayed with Sunrise for 2.5 years, and when I heard the call, it was time to come home and work for your nation. I was living in Philadelphia at that time, and it was some brothers that came and they found me. Although I was working with Sunrise, I was on the bus, on the trolley one day going from North Philly to Germantown. That's where Sunrise lived. And his brother saw me in some culture, and he asked, he pulled my garment. He said, "Brother, why you dressed like that?" I said, "I'm a Hebrew." He said, later find out it was Brother Winston, the writer and author. Please forgive me. From Timbuktu, from Babylon to Timbuktu. His name will come back to me.
Okay.
A great writer in Philly, and we became great friends, and he took me to meet the various different congregations. Rabbi Respes out of New Jersey, I met all of those brothers. In Philadelphia, Winston. Anyway, I met the brothers in Philly. I didn't get involved in the congregations. I stayed, even though I was Abshalom ben Shlomo. I had a wife that's with me for 40 years, and I had a small son at 2 years old who was a giant in the community this time, Raphael. So I continued on to do what I was doing, and brothers came. Brother knocked on my door, and he asked for a place to stay. He said he was referred to me. His name was Israel Harris.
Okay.
Out of upstate New York. And anyway, I put him up for a while. He stayed with me for about a month, and then he got an apartment down the street, and then some other young brothers became friends of his. They came up from Chicago. They stayed with him. They later moved back to Chicago in 1970 and said it was time for the Exodus.
Okay. Now let's fast forward a little bit. When I first met you, it was in D.C.
Yes.
It was
1979.
Okay.
We had just left Liberia and Ghana. Sons of the Kingdom and the Soul Messengers.
Right. You were part of a international band.
Correct.
And you were touring.
Right. Ghana and Liberia. We came to America en route to come back to Israel, but we were touring. We did some performances in DC, the DC area with Chicago, where we had extensions, and Atlanta. That's where we did. We did some lectures, because I recall doing some lectures at the university in Baltimore, some radio programs in Chicago, Atlanta, and DC. Personally, I did some interviews relative to who we were, what we were about, and what the music was about, and etc.
I remember that.
As a matter of fact, I even took you out on a date. We went to the movies because the minister, you and your sister.
Wow, that really, really brings back memories.
You had